Single dad janitor helped a Navy Admiral in the rain, then she heard a knock that changed her life. The rain had been falling with a kind of relentless fury that morning, the kind that made people hurry, duck their heads, and pray the day wouldn't get any worse. But for Rowan Hale, the quiet single dad janitor whose world was already hanging by a thread, the storm didn't change anything. His shoes were soaked, his jacket was leaking, and the weight of overdue bills in his pocket felt heavier than the mop bucket he dragged behind him. Still, nothing prepared him for what happened when he stepped outside the community center and saw a woman in a navy blue uniform kneeling in the flooding street, her cap blown aside, as she tried desperately to gather scattered folders before they were swept away by the rushing water. Her hands trembled, her hair clung to her face, and the hopelessness in her eyes struck him harder than the cold rain. And in that moment, Rowan made a choice that would change both of their lives in ways neither of them could have predicted. Play button if you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support truly helps us grow this community of hope. Rowan rushed toward her, slipping through puddles and ignoring the sting of rain slicing across his face. He didn't know who she was, didn't know she was Admiral Celine Vaughn, one of the highest-ranking officers in the region. All he saw was someone struggling alone in the storm, and he couldn't walk away from that, even if his own life felt like it was unraveling faster with every passing day. He grabbed the folders before the water pulled them away, shielding them with his jacket as Celine looked up at him, stunned that someone would stop for her. When she tried to stand, her ankle buckled, and without hesitation, Rowan lifted her with the same gentle strength he used when carrying his little daughter Mira to bed after she fell asleep doing homework. Celine protested weakly, embarrassed by her vulnerability, but the pain in her twisted ankle silenced her. Rowan carried her into the community center, dripping rain across the polished floor he had just cleaned minutes earlier, and set her down on the nearest bench with a kind of carefulness that told her he was used to protecting things more fragile than himself. She studied him then, not with the authority of an admiral, but with the soft bewilderment of a person who had long forgotten what it felt like to be helped without being owed. Rowan wasn't the kind of man people noticed. He blended into hallways, into background noise, into the parts of society that worked quietly while everyone else rushed forward. But in the way he handed her the rescued documents, apologizing for the rain on them as if it were his fault the clouds opened, Celine felt something unfamiliar, a warmth, a sincerity she rarely encountered even in places filled with medals and salutes. She thanked him, though her pride stumbled over the words, and Rowan simply nodded before returning to his mop bucket, unaware that this small act of kindness had just placed both of their destinies on a collision course. Celine watched him work for a moment, noticing how he winced when he bent, how his shoulders slumped from exhaustion that went far beyond physical labor. Something tugged at her, something she didn't immediately understand. Admirals didn't ask janitors how they were doing. They didn't get involved in the lives of the people cleaning tiles beneath their boots. But Celine Vaughn had always been different, even if the Navy tried to shape her into something harder and colder. She'd risen through the ranks by being relentless, but she had once been a girl who cared too much, and Rowan's quiet struggle awakened the part of her she thought she had buried. As Rowan finished the last section of the hallway, his thoughts drifted to Mira, sweet, bright Mira, with her big drawings taped over their broken apartment walls and her constant apology for the cough she couldn't shake because the heater kept failing. He needed extra hours. He needed money for medicine. He needed a miracle. But Rowan Hale had stopped believing in miracles years ago, around the same time he stopped believing life ever got easier for men like him. When Celine called his name, she had read it off his badge. He turned, startled, not used to being addressed by anyone with a uniform that important. She thanked him again, her voice softer this time, but Rowan brushed it off, saying helping her was the easiest part of his day. This answer surprised her. Most people exaggerated their burdens. Rowan hid his. Over the next few days, Celine found herself returning to the center under the excuse of attending meetings, but the truth was far simpler. She couldn't shake the memory of the man who had carried her without hesitation and then disappeared back into a life of invisible struggle. She saw him fixing a broken chair in the lobby, making it sturdy enough for visitors even though no one would know he had done it. She watched him help elderly volunteers carry boxes, watched him kneel to pick up a crying toddler's spilled cup, watched him give, until she wondered how much of himself he had left. One afternoon, she caught him coughing into his sleeve, trying to hide the tremble in his hands as he dragged a trash bin twice his size toward the back exit. She approached him, offering help, but he shook his head, insisting she shouldn't lift anything with her ankle still healing. She felt a rush of embarrassment. This janitor, who could barely stay upright, was still thinking about her injury before his own pain. She wanted to ask him what he needed. She wanted to ask why he looked like a man carrying not just trash, but the weight of an entire collapsing world. But she didn't know how to ask without sounding intrusive, so she simply thanked him again for helping her in the rain. Rowan nodded, grateful someone had even remembered. Then everything shifted the day Rowan didn't show up. Celine noticed immediately. The hallway floors weren't shiny. The mop bucket sat unused. The maintenance closet was locked. Something felt wrong. She asked the receptionist, who said Rowan called in with an emergency involving his daughter. Anxiety shot through Celine before she could stop it. She didn't know why she cared so much, but she did. When Rowan returned the next day, looking pale and worn, Celine quietly pulled him aside. She didn't force him to explain, but Rowan's eyes gave him away. They looked like someone who had run barefoot across broken glass. He finally told her, his daughter Mira had been struggling to breathe again. He had rushed her to the clinic, where they gave him another bill he couldn't pay. He talked about the heater breaking, the landlord ignoring him, the fear of losing Mira because he couldn't provide what she needed. As he spoke, Celine felt her chest tighten with something sharp and protective. She had grown up with everything structured, everything planned, everything stable. Rowan's life was the opposite. His world was a series of falling dominoes he kept trying to catch with two tired hands. That night, Celine couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, watching car lights smear across wet pavement as she replayed Rowan's words. She thought about how he had carried her through the storm without knowing her rank or her influence. He didn't help her because she was important. He helped her because she needed help. And she realized, she wanted to do the same for him. Not out of pity, but out of the same kindness he showed so instinctively. She started making calls, reaching out to contacts she trusted, looking for ways to help him without embarrassing him. But before she could finalize anything, before she could breathe life into her plan, something unexpected happened. 3 days later, at dawn, Rowan was jolted awake by a heavy knock at the door of his crumbling apartment. Mira stirred in her blanket fort beside him, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Rowan froze, fear prickling across his skin. Landlord. Debt collector. Bad news. He opened the door cautiously, heart racing, and froze at the sight before him. Standing in the cold morning light was Admiral Celine Vaughn. But she wasn't in her uniform. She wasn't standing like an officer. She held a small bag of groceries in one hand, a toolbox in the other, and a gentle, nervous determination in her eyes that told Rowan this wasn't an official visit, it was something far more personal. She stepped inside after he hesitated, taking in the peeling walls, the broken heater, the fragile way Mira held Rowan's hand as if she feared losing him. Celine knelt down to Mira's level, introducing herself with warmth, and the little girl smiled shyly. Then Celine looked up at Rowan with a steadiness that made something inside him crack open. She explained she wasn't here to judge or to interfere. She just wanted to help the way he had helped her. She fixed the heater with surprising skill, told stories that made Mira giggle, cooked breakfast in their tiny kitchen, and when Rowan finally sank onto the couch from emotional exhaustion, she sat beside him, close but not intrusive, and told him he didn't have to carry everything alone. Rowan felt tears burn his eyes, but he blinked them back, not wanting Mira to worry. Celine pretended not to notice, giving him the dignity he clung to. But something inside him shifted, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, trembling hope. And that knock, that unexpected knock at sunrise, marked the beginning of something Rowan never imagined life would give him again. Stability, support, connection, and eventually, something deeper and more profound than either of them expected. As Celine continued to show up, not as an admiral, but as someone who genuinely cared, Rowan realized kindness had a strange way of returning when you least expected it, multiplied and overflowing. Months passed. Mira grew healthier. Rowan found opportunities Celine quietly helped open for him, better hours, better pay, safer housing. And Celine found something too, the soft, grounding presence she never found in her rigid world of rank and protocol. Together, they built something delicate and beautiful, two broken paths merging into one steady road. Play button if this story touched your heart. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who need a little hope. Filled down pointing triangle special request. Comment, kindness always returns, if you believe compassion can change lives.